Time flows on like a tide, leaving pools of memory shrinking in its wake, its crest carrying with it the present. In the history of a place, the present is ever-changing, restlessly moving toward an unknown fate in the unknowable future. It is the past which is the reality. Here in this enchanted landscape, on the wings of imagination, we can return to times past and evoke the spirits that dwell there still, in landscapes only lightly touched by the hand of man. The crown of the continent, it is called, an area of densely concentrated alpine beauty in the Rocky Mountains, including both Glacier and Waterton National Parks. Among these towering summits and lake-strewn valleys, the scene remains as it was in centuries past, a primeval stage upon which many dramas of the pageant of North American history have been enacted. Chief Mountain is the Ararat of Blackfeet Indian legend, the place from which the old man, Napi, recreated the earth after the Great Flood. Forbidding and mysterious, mountains have held a universal fascination for mankind since time immemorial. It was on another such mountain, in another tradition, that God said unto Moses,
"Behold, there is a place."
My people have been in these parts for over 100 years now. I come up here now and then to see things as they were, to see things as my ancestors would have seen them. You can see awful far from up here, not only just 100 miles, but many a thousands of years into the past. That black line of hills over on the horizon is the Porcupine Hills, where the Indians had a buffalo jump. That's how they harvested their meat before they had horses for the chase. The jump is called head smashed in for a poor fella that sit in a cave at the base of the cliff to watch the buffalo come over. Wasn't a good idea. That buffalo jump was used for about 10,000 years, but that's nothing for time compared to this rock. Many millions of years ago, this area was below sea level. This rock, a limestone, a piece of stromatolite, was deposited by the algae and a tropical sea reef. Many things have changed around here since the time of the tropical seas. In 1806, the Lewis and Clark expedition reached its most northerly point, a little ways out on the plains here behind me. They saw this mountain, Chief Mountain, a rock spire piercing the sky. Those black hills out there on the Great Plains, see them? Those are the Sweetgrass Hills, where the red-coated Mounties rested from their long march west from Manitoba, just before they confronted the whiskey traders at Fort Hoopa. Turtle Mountain is the one over there that's half black and half white. The black is forest. The white is one of the largest landslides in North America in historic times. It's the Frank Slide, which crushed the town of Frank in 1903. Back here to the west are glaciers and snowfields, fountainheads of major rivers, which in turn are the sources of the vast irrigation network which form the economic base of this region. This ridge reaching out into the plains is the Hudson Bay Divide, separating the Arctic and the Atlantic drainages. And this little neck in the ridge, that's Immigrant Gap. where my great-great-granddad and grandma brought their covered wagons through in 1887. The tide of settlement had already reached the Pacific shore and was washing back and filling in the nooks and crannies of the continent by 1887. The railroad spanned both the U.S. and Canada by this time, and this was one of the last wagon migrations to take place in America. This is Lee Creek. Follow it downstream a few miles and you'll come to Cardston, the town founded by the Utah immigrants. These immigrants were Mormons, and moving on was nothing new to them. In less than 20 years since its founding, their church had moved on 4 times to find religious freedom in a new land. That first group was led by Charles Ora Card, a leading citizen of Cache County, Utah, when he pulled up stakes and headed north, following a disagreement with the federal government over the number of wives that a man should have. These immigrants worked hard to assure the permanence of the town, building a sawmill, grist mill, shingle mill, a cheese factory, and a co-op store, with Card as builder or director of many of the projects. His wife, Zina, personally financed many of the projects, using money left her in the estate of her father, Brigham Young. Thus, a portion of the wealth of the great Mormon colonizer served as the economic lifeblood of Cardston. Cardstonites are proud of their past and grateful for the sacrifices made by the pioneers to settle this land that we now call home. A few vestiges of the past are carefully preserved, such as this, the original log card home. From a modest collection of log homes, Cardston grew into a town of brick and stone. The settlers located seams of coal and sandstone for quarrying. When fossil oyster shell and coal were found side by side, they considered it divine purpose to make lime for mortar. Horses and horse-drawn carriages were the everyday mode of transportation for the early pioneers. And the Remington Heritage Carriage Collection in Cardston represents the finest assemblage of restored carriages in Western Canada. The new provincial facility to house and display these carriages is to be a major interpretive center, such as those the province has built at Frank Slide and Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump. The vigor and determination of these old-timers was legendary, and despite its small size, the town of Cardston took part in several significant Alberta firsts. The first registered irrigation system, construction of the first steel bridge, the first long-distance telephone line built in 1894, and the first Mormon temple outside of the United States. The first major irrigation canal in Western Canada was constructed from Kimball to Lethbridge starting in 1898. Card convinced the financiers of the project that he had at his disposal the horsepower, manpower, and irrigation expertise to handle a large part of the construction. The little town has grown and changed. Log cabin schools have evolved into examples of modern architecture in a manner which would please the pioneers. The frequent winds sweeping down from the mountains have been turned to good account. Towns change, times change, the pace and direction of our lives change, but some values remain the same. These values and the memory of my ancestors are most vividly recalled as I walk the landscapes that remain as they saw them. Here my mind's eye peoples the scene and breathes life into history.
From the little town on the prairie, one's eye is drawn across the rolling foothills to the snowy mountains. Eternal, unchanging, these vaulting walls and pinnacles are sources not only of crystal waters, but of inspiration, representing pride in the past and faith in the future. I lift mine eyes unto the hills, sang the psalmist. From prairie to mountaintop to prairie, on the winged feet of memory, we walk the circuit of heaven.